Hi guys, welcome back to the channel for another video. We are freezing and we are in lockdown in Sydney, so fun times all round. Today's video is not the video that we were planning to put up, so apologies to my editor for the last minute change, but there's been a lot going on in internet land, recovery community land over the last few days, and particularly the last 24 hours or so. So a few things to address, and we're going to be doing a bit in this video. So Educating Shanny, you may have seen, popped up a video yesterday responding to me regarding some concern that I had raised on my community page in the last few days about her recent Eugenia Cooney content. So we'll be chatting about sort of what's going on there. We're also going to be jumping into a bit of a part two to my Helping Eugenia Cooney is Pointless video, because the comment section was amazing. I really expected it to be more of a garbage fire, but people really connected to the idea that, yes, they are frustrated that they can't help or reach Eugenia, but that they would like, some outlets and some ways to take action for and on behalf of eating disorder sufferers if they can, which I loved to see. So yes, we talked about it, and now here we'll talk about some solutions. And I'm also going to be talking about why I'm never going to be talking about this again. I have never addressed Eugenia directly. I've always addressed the community's response to her and the ways that I think that's harmful, not just for her, to make this really clear, but for the community and for sufferers, and the fact that the online campaign is really upholding damaging stereotypes and stigmas about eating disorder sufferers. So Shanny uploaded a video essentially responding to some concern that I'd raised on my community page about her Eugenia Cooney content. She didn't specify what those concerns were, and they were quite specific. Shanny has been making pretty much exclusively Eugenia Cooney content over the last little while, which was not the issue I was raising. I've made my thoughts on, the community's attempt to reach Eugenia really, really clear. And Shanny's, content was not of concern to me, with the exception of re-uploading Eugenia's content in full and showing it to her recovering and disordered audience, but at the same time maintaining this idea that simply looking at Eugenia is enough to, really damage people and impact people pretty severely. I couldn't understand why she would then show her audience Eugenia when looking at Eugenia apparently has this major impact on people's eating disorders. That didn't make sense to me, but, was not something I was, overly concerned about. I could see the intention was really good. So it wasn't until I was sent videos more recently from people who really like and love Shanny, saying I'm a bit concerned and sort of confused about Shanny's recent approach to Eugenia, which was to start re-uploading people's stories where they were detailing, in their view, that Eugenia had contributed to their eating disorder. Not something I agree with. I think that doesn't help the stigma and stereotype of eating disorders to oversimplify them to looking at Eugenia can contribute to eating disorders in this significant way. We just know there are just so many more significant contributors than, say, pro-ana material. That pro-ana stuff is a symptom of eating disorders more so than it's the cause. Having an interest in pro-ana material, going and intentionally triggering yourself, is a symptom more so than it could cause eating disorders. The reason I chose to say something was because there was a video uploaded in which somebody, a small creator, but I know that this person has expressed remorse and regret over the language they used, but Shanny uploaded in full this person's video yelling at Eugenia and calling her derogatory names, calling her a stupid hoe. And it was put up unedited. There was no clarification given. There was no issue taken with that kind of language or the way that she was spoken to. And the reason that concerns me, to give some specific explanation for why that is damaging, is that we see that kind of treatment of eating disorder sufferers, not just in relation to Eugenia, but working with clients, the amount of time that I spend with parents and carers who have reached the point of total frustration with an unwilling and chronically unwell child or partner or whomever start to use this kind of language and this kind of attitude towards sufferers. It happens. Nobody's perfect. I'm not saying that this person was absolutely wrong for expressing their feelings or the impact they believe that she's had. Absolutely, has every right to express that. For that then to be uploaded to a channel with the reach of Shanny's channel from the perspective of an advocate and a survivor, to legitimize that it is okay to reach a point where we start abusing, blaming, shaming, and using derogatory language towards sufferers has a real world impact. I have to sit with parents and partners and carers and say, I understand your feelings, I understand your frustration. This is only going to contribute to further isolation of this person and an unwillingness to reach out and an unwillingness to recover. Because it is absolutely reinforcing to them that they are a bad person, that they are deserving of the hell that it is to be in an eating disorder. And they cling to their eating disorder. They cling to the thing that is their escape, that is their coping mechanism, that helps them deal with their shame and helps them deal with poor treatment or abuse or whatever it is. So to legitimize that it's okay to talk to sufferers who, yes, you might be frustrated with, who you might not agree with, does have the capacity to have really serious consequences in the real world. So that was my position. That is the specific concern I was raising, that I did not believe it was okay to re-upload that without any kind of commentary, without any kind of clarification, that that kind of language is not helpful and not productive. Again, I'm not talking about right or wrong. We're talking about if we're trying to effectively reach people, is it effective? We know, I can tell you from observing it, that it is not effective or productive. The argument that Shanny made publicly was that she was trying to reach Eugenia's audience. She was no longer trying to reach Eugenia. This was about reaching Eugenia's audience and the people who had been negatively impacted by Eugenia. What she told me behind the scenes at the same time was that her goal was absolutely to still reach Eugenia. So that was not the case. She was confident that Eugenia was going to see these videos. That is what she expressed to me. So I'm not sure why there's a public message being put out there, but clearly there's a different intention behind the scenes. I don't know. So people are kind of responding to my concern as if this is, an attempt to reach people who have, been impacted by Eugenia, and she's no longer trying to reach Eugenia. That's just not the case. She was confident that Eugenia would see videos of her being screamed at and being called terrible names, which happens all over Reddit, which happens all over YouTube. Her being called a narcissist, her being called evil, a predator, now a stupid hoe. To have that legitimized by a fellow sufferer, survivor, and advocate sends a really bad message to our recovery community, and it sends a bad message to people who are potentially going to be caring for and supporting someone with an eating disorder, that it's okay to reach a point of frustration and start hurling abuse at sufferers. That's part of advocacy, is having uncomfortable conversations. I don't do it very much. I haven't responded to anything or anyone for about a year, and I think it was Jillian Michaels. But the purpose of advocacy is to affect change, to make greater change for the population overall. Really glad to see in that video that Shanny has stated, she can now see that her attempt to reach Eugenia in that way did not work, that she, thought that this was the best approach, which is totally up to her. She can try it. I can disagree with it. It's, I'm not YouTube. I don't work at YouTube. I can't take her videos down. But I can provide a different perspective, which behind the scenes and in public, I did very respectfully and very kindly. But Shanny herself has now said, look, it didn't work. And that she's going to be making a change to her content regarding Eugenia, which I really hope is the case. Shanny also, I think, was kind of expressing that maybe I don't think that she has something to contribute, or that she, doesn't have, I don't know. She was referring to not having credentials and all that sort of stuff. I'm not a PhD, guys. Like, I'm a recovery coach. I am accredited. But for a long time, my whole reference point was my lived experience. I interview and promote and support people all the time who are coming from a place of lived experience. I have people here on the channel. I interview them from all different backgrounds, all different races, ages, genders. I absolutely believe in the power of lived experience. I referred to my credentials when talking to her only in the sense that I was explaining that as far as Eugenia being this big impact on eating disorders, is just not what we see behind the scenes in treatment. She just doesn't come up. She really doesn't. In 3.5 years, I have not heard a single client say to me, Eugenia was this great big significant contributor. It just doesn't come up. When I'm talking to other treatment team members, psychologists, psychiatrists, she doesn't come up. So it was me pointing to Shanny. Yes, you have this huge, powerful voice and this wonderful platform, and you use it beautifully. I just don't agree with how you're doing this, because it isn't actually showing up in the sufferer population to the degree that this whole online panic is implying. So yes, I think Shani is a wonderful advocate, and that her lived experience is so powerful. I have never said anything to the contrary. But yes, this is why advocacy can be uncomfortable. This is why having these uncomfortable conversations is not fun. But we get to good outcomes. We get to, okay, let's look at the messaging that's out there and let's refine it and let's reflect on it. I've had to do it myself. I've had my messaging called out. I've absolutely had to own up to my fat phobia and my ignorance in not including certain people in my messaging. That is a continuous thing. I am grateful for those call outs. I have been like hideously called out. And even that I am grateful for. It has taught me so much. What I appreciate more so, as I'm sure Shani would agree to, is more respectful, kind approach, which is the approach I took privately and publicly, as I've said. But we do it to get to outcomes, and this has clearly got to a good outcome. And I, look forward to seeing the amazing content Shani will continue to make. I certainly don't want there to be discord or tension or anything like that in the community. I've been a little bit confused in Shani's responses. I really appreciate the really kind things she said in the video. I can then see comments being liked which are kind of riling up that tension and that confrontation, which is hurtful and disappointing in all the ways that I've addressed her. I haven't liked any comments which are horrible about her. I tried to remove anything that was really horrible. That I find a bit disappointing and hurtful, degrading my career and my work and me as a person. That conflict is odd. I've also, over the past few days, experienced quite a bit of what seems like coordinated trolling from her fan base, and received messages from other people who have begged me to not share their information, but have given me permission to generally refer to similar coordinated trolling that they were on the receiving end of, whereby they've had to go off social media for months and change all of their usernames, and where they've been, just stuff that is concerning. And look, I've talked about people with, 1 million followers, etc., who have, had their fans at the exact same time, which is how it's coordinated. When you've been doing this for long enough, you can tell when trolling is pretty coordinated. Come and, blast you at the exact same time. So I've taken the heat before. It's not new to me, but the things I've heard from people who don't have platforms, who have been essentially harassed. I would just say to Shanny, if that's something you're not aware of, please be aware of it, and please let your fans know, who clearly care about you deeply and love you deeply. That's having a really, really bad impact on people's mental health from what I've seen. I've seen messages, I've seen screenshots. Like I said, I'm not going to put these people back in the same position they were in, where they had to go off social media. But if you're now aware of it, and I'm now aware of it, it's really not something I would hope to continue to hear about. Shanny has said that she would like to join forces, which I appreciate the message of that. Maybe we need to have some offline conversations about some of this other stuff before we could do that. But I think that that's, a really lovely sentiment. But the point of all of that, change was made. That's the point of these conversations. And I'm really, really grateful that she was open to feedback and that we got to this outcome. So on to the next topic. What I wanted to do is, I'm not going to do it in this video, but I think it is important to give people outlets and solutions and things that they can actively do, and where they can put this frustration and this energy that they can't reach her. I promise you, there are so many beautiful ways that you can help people, whether it's fundraising or whether it's just educating yourself with some really great resources, or volunteering, or I'm going to be making content that really addresses parents and how to kind of deal with managing online content if you're coming across people who you believe could be unhelpful to your child, like watching Eugenia's content. There's a lot more of it out there other than Eugenia. On Instagram, on TikTok, there's so much stuff. Eugenia is not, even close to a drop in the bucket of the stuff out there that's damaging. So I am going to be doing videos coming up about how to really effectively make change. So if you are someone who has, been in that Eugenia world, please keep an eye out for that content. If you are a parent particularly, I'm more than happy to give solutions and to give advice about how to maybe manage that and monitor it, and to engage with your children or with the content they find, or how to talk to them about it is probably the most important thing. To use these as teachable moments, to use these as opportunities to have open dialogue with your child and to navigate that in a way that's safe and effective. I know that is so overwhelming for parents to be like, how do I talk about it without potentially doing more harm than good? So that's something which will be happening on the channel in the next little while, is coming up with solutions. These videos will not address Eugenia. They will not have Eugenia in the title. They will be around the topics of, online content regarding eating disorders and some more advice-driven stuff, I guess. Onto the final thing that I was going to address in this video. And the reason I'm not going to be talking about Eugenia anymore, and sort of my final thoughts about addressing Eugenia and the community response to Eugenia. I think one of our greatest examples of, what this looks like now versus what it's going to look like down the track is kind of the case study of Britney Spears. If you were someone who was around and aware back then, there was a really strong, vicious tabloid culture and social attitude towards Britney Spears when she was seriously mentally unwell back in the 2000s, the early 2000s, I think it was. It was awful, kind of like Princess Diana as well. The harassment, the language used, the vilification, the anger, the amount of responsibility put on her as like a role model and what she was exemplifying to young fans, etc., when she was seriously mentally compromised and seriously suffering and potentially in an abusive environment, which we now know, as more and more information comes out so far down the track, that that's exactly what was going on. Seriously mentally compromised and in an abusive environment. There are so many parallels here to Eugenia. Mentally compromised, physically compromised, and from what we can pretty safely assume, in an environment which is very likely not very healthy. And what we can see with the Britney situation is that everybody got so immersed and enmeshed and lost complete perspective about who we were talking about and what position they were in. And I can see that happening here with Eugenia. People have become so invested and so frustrated that it started to turn towards vilification and blame and shame and just thinking that she kind of is more responsible than she actually is or has the capacity to be. We know this clinically from people who are as compromised as she is. Her locus of responsibility and control is extremely low, if not non-existent. I think in time, when people look back at this situation, it's going to look not great. That's my belief. I think that whether or not Eugenia gets better, which I absolutely still think that she has the capacity to, or she sadly succumbs to her illness, I think that we're going to look back on all the Reddit forums and all the videos and all the comments and all the dislikes and all the calling her a narcissist and evil. And I think it's going to look really, really horrible. And I think that it's going to be a really awful opportunity for us to learn again how much treating mentally unwell people like this hurts the overall mental illness population, I guess, or mentally ill population. I've lost my vocabulary after speaking nonstop for half an hour. Legitimizing and allowing people to speak to and about mentally ill people like this sends the message that they have more capacity and more responsibility than they actually do or have the ability to have than they ever could. And it then has a flow-on effect to how we all talk about mental illness and how we talk about people who are mentally ill. It's only going to reinforce stereotypes and stigmas and belief systems which ultimately harm really, really vulnerable people. So that is why I will not be speaking about Eugenia. She will not be in any titles. People I know will continually request for me to talk about it, and I will just keep making the same video over and over again, which I have for 4 years, being like, it's not helping. We know it's not helping. We can see it's not helping. And so I have no intention of doing that. I have no intention of contributing to this, which is why I've never addressed her directly. And I've made my points clear about what I think this is and long-term what I think it's going to look like. And it's not going to be good. Long video. Thank you for sticking with me. They're my thoughts. Peace and love to everyone. This is not meant to be an argument. It's not meant to be a fight. It's not. And I don't like having these discussions reduced down to that kind of language when people are like, it's a cat fight. No, we're grown women. Like, we're adults. We can have a respectful conversation about how we disagree. And if there's public content, then anyone is well within their right to make a public comment. I try to keep it respectful. I try to keep it kind. And it's not something I love to do, but change is made. I'm cold, but I'm sweating. Can someone explain the science of that to me, please? I'm sending you all so much love. Like I said, we're in lockdown, so it's very quiet times here. I've got to get back to a puzzle. No, I've actually got a ton of work to do and a coach to catch up with and clients to talk to. But yeah, this lockdown's been rough, man. It's been, I didn't really mind the last lockdown, but I think it's like seeing people overseas, like traveling overseas. Like, people apparently can go to Europe now. When did that happen? And we're in lockdown. So, but as long as everybody's safe, that's the most important thing. Anyway, guys, I'm sending you all a ton of love. I will see you in a video next week. And in the meantime, stay safe, take care of yourselves, stay kind. I'll see you all very soon.